The first sign something was wrong was how quiet the room felt. Not peaceful, just emptied out. Like the air had already left before I sat down. The CEO didn't waste time. No small talk. No congratulations. She folded her hands on the table and said it the way people say things when they have practiced them in the mirror. Policy has changed. Legal will clarify it for you. That was it. I waited for the second sentence. The explanation. The part where she acknowledged the 3-year ERP launch that had just gone live without a single hour of downtime. Nothing came. She looked at me like the conversation had already moved on. I nodded. I even smiled a little, which makes me cringe now. I thanked her for letting me know. I stood up. My chair made a small scraping sound against the floor. Louder than it should have been. I didn't argue. I didn't remind her of the meetings where the bonus had been discussed like it was already mine. I didn't mention the nights I slept with my laptop open or the weekends that disappeared into migration logs and rollback plans. I just walked out. The hallway smelled faintly like burnt coffee. Someone laughed near the elevators. The company was still celebrating. Apparently, just not me. My name is Sylvia Porter, 31 years old. I went back to my desk and sat there longer than necessary, staring at my monitor like it might tell me I'd misunderstood. The bonus wasn't a rumor. It wasn't implied. It had been stated. Clear. Clean. Tied to delivery. And delivery had happened. Part of me wanted to march back into that office and say something sharp. Something clever. I've done that before. It never ends well. Anger makes promises I can't keep. So I did what I always do when I don't trust my emotions. I slowed down. I opened my inbox. I reread the calendar invite from 3 years ago, the one that kicked off the ERP project. I scrolled past old threads, old approvals, old certainty. There was a tight feeling in my chest that hadn't been there an hour earlier. Not rage. Something colder. Something steadier. I didn't know what I was going to do yet. I just knew I wasn't going to pretend this hadn't happened. I closed my laptop, picked up my phone, and thought about who needed to hear from me next. By the time I sat back down, my phone was already lighting up. "You okay, Mark?" from infrastructure messaged. "Launch parties at 7. You coming?" I typed maybe and didn't send it. The bonus wasn't some vague thank you. It had a number, a real one, $180,000. We talked about it in planning meetings like it was already spent. HR was there. Finance was there. No one flinched when it came up. 3 years. That's how long the ERP took. 3 years of pulling a company off a legacy system that should have been retired before I graduated college. 3 years of nights where the only sound in my apartment was the fan on my laptop and the error logs scrolling by. I still remember Tyler leaning over my desk during the second year. "Once this thing goes live," he said, grinning, "you're set. This bonus is going to make it worth it." Worth it, like there was a price tag on sleep. I didn't tell him that I'd already planned around it, that I'd moved apartments because I thought I could finally afford a place with light, that I'd told my sister I could help her out this year, that I'd stopped saying no to things because I thought, it's fine. It's coming. I did the math over and over. Student loans, credit cards, the gap between surviving and breathing. That bonus was the line between them. At lunch, I overheard 2 people from finance talking near the copier. "Cleanest launch we've ever had," one of them said. "No downtime at all." The other replied, "I didn't even get a call. I almost laughed. I almost cried." I did neither. Later that afternoon, Tyler walked past my desk, slapped the partition like we were friends. "Wild day, huh?" he said. "Yeah," I answered. He didn't mention the bonus. Didn't look at me long enough to notice I was still sitting there. Hands folded, not working. That's the part people miss. The bonus wasn't a reward. It was a promise. One they let me build my life around. Then they changed the rules and acted like I was supposed to understand. I stared at my screen until it dimmed. Somewhere between the numbers and the silence, something in me shifted. Not anger. Something quieter. Something that doesn't go away just because you tell it to. People think silence means you agree, or that you're scared. Neither was true. Mark leaned over the partition around 3. "You look like you just lost a bet," he said. "I'm fine," I told him. That was a lie, but it was a useful one. He waited, like he expected more. When it didn't come, he shrugged and walked away. Everyone else did the same. That's the thing about offices. If you don't make noise, people assume nothing's wrong. I didn't email HR, and I didn't write a long message I'd regret later. I didn't pull Tyler aside and ask what happened to all that talk about being set once the system went live. I already knew what he'd say. Something about timing, or budgets, or how none of this was personal. I'd heard it before. At 4:30, my manager pinged me. Hey, quick check. Everything good? Yeah, I replied. All good. Another lie. Another door closed. Here's the part that's hard to explain. I wasn't calm because I didn't care. I was calm because I did. Too much. Every time I've argued in a moment like that, I lost control of the room, raised my voice, made it about tone instead of facts. They love that. Gives them an excuse. So I stayed quiet. I watched who avoided my desk. I noticed who suddenly had meetings they needed to get to. I paid attention to what wasn't being said. I opened my sent folder. Saw nothing angry, nothing desperate. That felt intentional, clean. Tyler walked by again near the end of the day. You heading out, he asked. Soon, I said. He nodded. Relieved. Like the problem had solved itself. It hadn't. I just wasn't handing it to them wrapped in emotion. I packed my bag slowly, turned off my monitor. The office noise blurred into background hum. Silence isn't empty. It's space. Space to think. Space to decide. And I had a decision coming. 3 years earlier, everyone wanted the meeting over. The vendor's legal counsel was on speaker, calm voice, polite, bored. From our side, this is a standard licensing agreement, he said. Nothing unusual. Tyler glanced at the clock. The CFO was already stacking papers like we were done. Great, Tyler said. Let's wrap it. Hold on, I said. The room stalled. Not dramatically, just enough to annoy people. There's one thing I want added. I said, a dependency clause. The vendor lawyer paused. Dependency on what? On me, I said. If I'm no longer employed and actively paid, the license goes inactive. Tyler laughed. Quick and sharp. Come on, Sylvia. That's not necessary. It is. I said. The CFO leaned back. We're not building a hostage situation. I swallowed. My mouth was dry. I'm not asking for leverage. I said, I'm asking for continuity. This system won't run without oversight. Not at the start. The vendor lawyer cleared his throat. That's highly unusual. I know. I said, so is this migration? Tyler shook his head. You're being paranoid. Maybe I was. But I'd watched 2 senior engineers get walked out in the last year after projects went live. Thanked, replaced, forgotten. I didn't say that part. I just opened my notebook and slid it across the table. I've written the language. I said Appendix C, Clause 8.2. The CFO skimmed it. This ties the license to your compensation status. He said, yes. I answered. And if that status changes, then the license pauses. The room went quiet, not hostile. Calculating. The vendor lawyer spoke again. If we include this, it sets precedent. Tyler exhaled. Frustrated. Fine. He said, put it in. We need to move. That was it. No debate. No warning. Just impatience beating caution. The CFO signed. Tyler signed. The vendor signed. Nobody looked at me. Afterward, Tyler caught up with me in the hallway. You really think you're that irreplaceable? He asked. I didn't answer right away. No, I said finally. I think the work is. He laughed like that settled it. I didn't feel clever walking back to my desk. I felt embarrassed. Like I'd just admitted I didn't trust them. Like I'd insured something everyone else thought would never crash. 3 years later, sitting in my quiet office, I opened that contract again. Appendix C. Still there. Still signed. Still ignored. I stared at the contract longer than I meant to. Not reading. Just letting it sit there. Open. Like it might change its mind. I opened a new email, addressed it to legal. Patricia Morrison. We'd spoken maybe twice in 3 years. Both times brief, polite, forgettable. Subject line took longer than the body. Question regarding ERP license and compensation status. I typed, deleted, typed again. Hi, Patricia. I'm looking for clarification on how the recent policy change affects the ERP vendor agreement. Specifically Appendix C. Could you let me know if there are any compliance implications? That was it. 4 sentences, no tone, no history lesson, no mention of bonuses or promises. I attached the contract and stopped. My finger hovered over send. I thought about all the other emails I could write instead. The angry one, the pleading one, the one that explained everything in case they claimed ignorance later. I didn't send any of those. I clicked send. Outlook froze for a half second, just long enough to make my stomach drop. Then it went through. A few minutes later, Tyler passed my desk. "You good?" he asked. "Already walking." "Yeah," I said. Another lie. Still useful. I closed my inbox before I could refresh it, picked up my phone, put it face down. There was nothing else to do now. The move was made. At 6, I packed up. As I stood, my computer chimed. "New message. Thanks for flagging this." Patricia wrote, "I'm reviewing the language now. I may have a few follow-up questions." No reassurance. No alarm. Just that. I shut the laptop and slipped it into my bag. Whatever happened next wasn't mine to control anymore. That was the strange part. I felt lighter knowing that. Sometimes power doesn't come from pushing harder. Sometimes it comes from letting a process do what it's designed to do. Patricia called the next morning. Not an email, not a calendar invite, a call. "Hi, Sylvia," she said. Her voice was careful, not warm, not cold. "I'm reviewing the ERP agreement you sent." "Okay," I said. "I want to make sure I understand something." She continued. "Appendix C, Clause 8.2. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch. "Go on," I said. "It defines a designated principal architect," she said, "and it ties license validity to that role being actively employed and compensated." "Yes," I said. "And that person is named," she added, "by name." "Yes," she paused. I could hear typing. Fast, then paper. "So if your compensation status changes," she said, slower now, "the license enters non-compliance." That's how it reads. I said, another pause. Longer this time. "Who approved this language?" she asked. "Finance, the vendor, and Tyler." I said, 3 years ago. "I see," she said. And for the first time, I heard something shift. Not panic, but concern. Real concern. "Have you received anything in writing confirming the policy change?" she asked. "No," I said. "Just verbal." "And the bonus was tied to delivery?" "Yes." "And delivery occurred?" "Yes." She exhaled. Quiet. Controlled. "I need to loop in my team," she said. "And possibly the vendor." "That makes sense." I replied. "Sylvia," she said, lowering her voice. "Did anyone flag this clause internally after signing no?" I said. "It was never discussed again." "Okay," she said. "Please don't take any action on your end. Just be available." "I am," I said. We hung up. I sat there longer than necessary. Phone still in my hand. My chest felt tight. But not the way it had yesterday. This was different. Focused. By noon, my calendar invite disappeared. Then my access to a shared drive. Small things. Quiet things. The kind that tell you people are moving without you. At 2. Patricia emailed again. "Can you confirm your current compensation status?" I stared at the screen before replying. Unchanged. I typed. "As of now." She didn't respond right away. When she did, it was one line. "Understood. Please stand by." For the first time since the meeting with the CEO, I realized something important. They weren't clarifying policy anymore. They were assessing risk. It didn't break the way people expect systems to break. No alarms, no red screens, no dramatic crash. It just stopped letting people in. At 8:15, Mark appeared at my desk, breathing hard. "Hey," he said, "are you having trouble with the dashboards? I'm not logged in." I said, "Well, nobody is." He replied, "Finance can't pull reports. Inventory's stuck in red only." 10 minutes later, someone from accounting shouted across the floor, "Does anyone know why payroll won't authorize?" No one answered. Tyler came out of a conference room, phone pressed to his ear. He didn't look at me, didn't have to. The room already knew something was wrong. By 9, the board dashboard was blank. Just empty panels where numbers used to live. A finance director I barely knew walked past, muttering, "This can't be happening today." Someone rebooted a server. Someone else restarted a router. The help desk phones rang until they didn't anymore. At 9:30, Tyler finally stopped at my desk. "Sylvia," he said, too casual. "You seeing any issues on your end I don't have access?" I said. His jaw tightened. "Why not? I was removed this morning." I replied. "That landed. Harder than anything else so far. This is a vendor thing." He said, louder now. "For the room. Temporary authorization issue. At 10. An email went out company-wide. "We're investigating a brief systems interruption. No apology, no explanation." At 10:15, Patricia called me again. The vendor flagged a compliance issue. She said, "With what I asked?" "With the license." She answered, "They've paused access," paused, like this was a streaming service, "by 11. Finance couldn't close anything. Inventory couldn't move product. Payroll had 72 hours before cached data expired. People stopped pretending. The office went quiet in a way I'd never heard before. Not empty, heavy, like everyone was holding their breath at once. Tyler tried again. "Can you help us stabilize things? I can't access the system." I said, "Legally?" That word did it. He nodded once and walked away fast, phone already back at his ear. I sat there, hands folded, watching a system I built do exactly what it was designed to do. Nothing dramatic, just consequences. I didn't hear the call. I heard the aftermath. Patricia stepped out of the executive wing like someone who'd just walked through smoke. She didn't see me at first. When she did, she stopped. "Sylvia," she said. Her voice wasn't steady anymore. "I just got off the phone with the CEO. I waited." She asked what the fastest fix was. Patricia continued. "I told her there wasn't one. Not without resolving the breach." "What did she say?" I asked. Patricia pressed her lips together. "She said this had to be a mistake. That policy changes don't shut down systems. And you," I said. I read her the clause. Patricia replied. Out loud, she exhaled. Sharp. There was a pause. Then she asked me if this could be reversed retroactively. And I said, "I told her no." Patricia said, "Contracts don't work that way." She rubbed her temple like it hurt. Then I asked her the one question. I already knew which one. I said, "Please tell me you already paid her bonus." The silence that followed felt loud even from where I stood. She didn't answer right away. Patricia said, "When she did." She said legal was supposed to clarify first. I nodded. That sounded right. The vendor is treating this as a material breach. Patricia went on. They flagged it. Compliance. Audit trail. Everything. "What happens now?" I asked. Patricia looked at me carefully. "Now," she said, "they need you, and they know it." Across the floor, Tyler stood frozen in place. Phone pressed to his ear. Nodding too fast. The CEO's office door was closed. Tight. No one was celebrating anymore. No one was pretending this was temporary. I didn't feel victorious. I felt something else. Like gravity had finally switched sides. They didn't call it a negotiation. They called it a conversation. Patricia emailed me first. They'd like to talk. She wrote, "Today, if possible." I replied with one line. "I'm available after 4. The meeting invite came from the CEO's assistant. Small room, no video, no dial-in. In person, when I walked in. The CEO stood up too fast. "Sylvia," she said. "Thank you for coming." I sat. "Let's be clear," I said. "I'm not here to fix anything." Her smile flickered. "We understand," she said. "We just want to resolve this. Resolve what I asked." She glanced at Patricia, then back at me. "The bonus," she said. "And the disruption?" "The disruption is contractual." I said, "The bonus is overdue." She folded her hands the same way she had in our last meeting. Same posture, different tone. "We're prepared to issue the full amount," she said. $180,000. That was the original number, I said. Before the delay. Her jaw tightened. "What are you asking for?" she said. I didn't raise my voice. "I want the full bonus," I said. "Plus compensation for breach?" "And a clean exit." "A resignation?" she asked. "No," I replied. "A mutual separation, effective immediately, with a written acknowledgement of my role in the ERP delivery." The CFO spoke for the first time. "That's significant." "So was the risk." I said, "You took it." Silence stretched. I let it. And the system the CEO asked. That depends. I said, on timing and paperwork. She leaned back, looked older than she had a week ago. We'd never meant for this to escalate. She said, I know. I answered. That's why it did. Patricia cleared her throat. This is the cleanest option. She said, legally. The CEO nodded once. We'll agree, she said. All of it. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not joy, not victory, just clarity. As I stood to leave, the CEO spoke again. You could have fought us earlier, she said. I paused. I did. I said, just not out loud. The wire confirmation came in before noon. Patricia called right after. It's done. She said, the full amount, $180,000, plus the additional compensation we agreed on. Okay, I said. She waited, like she expected relief or gratitude. The vendor's restoring access? She added, everything should be back online by end of day. I know, I said. I already sent the final sign-off. There was a pause. You didn't have to do that so fast? She said, I wanted it clean. I replied, later. Tyler stopped by my desk for the first time all week. So, guess this is it. He said, yeah, I answered. He nodded like he wanted to say more. He didn't. Neither did I. HR emailed me the separation paperwork. Mutual, neutral, polished. My name spelled right for once. I signed it without rereading. I already knew what it said between the lines. As I packed up, Mark hovered nearby. You gonna miss this place, he asked. I thought about it. I'll miss the work. I said, not the guessing. That night, my phone stayed quiet. No emergencies. No last-minute questions. The system ran fine without me hovering over it. That was the final proof. I'd built something solid. I just didn't need to be trapped inside it anymore. Here's what I learned. And I'm saying this as someone who waited too long to believe it. Loyalty that only flows one way isn't loyalty. It's convenience. Read what you sign. Protect yourself early. And don't confuse being quiet with being powerless. If this story hit close to home, say something. Share it. Talk about it with someone who needs to hear it. These conversations matter more than companies admit. I walked away with my money, but more than that, I walked away knowing exactly what I'm worth.